What's up, guys? It's Richie Rich back yet again, and this time I'm gonna give my thoughts on perhaps, in my opinion, the best game of all time, and that is Resident Evil 4. Be sure to check this out. Yeah, man. So, Resident Evil 4 that came out in 2005, which I believe came out for the PS2, the GameCube originally. Originally, it was only meant to be released for the Nintendo GameCube, but then I believe, the rights got to Sony, so it was able to be released on the PS2. Then it got multiple releases, over the years. And like why I've ultimately, like just like going back even preceded PS even way before Resident Evil 4, like as like pretty much everyone the rich team knows, I'm like such a massive gamer. And like I was very much into the before the Resident Evil 4 came out. I was very much into like fighting games. I was a big Killer Instinct fan. When the Super SNES came out, Super Nintendo, I had three, like the trilogy. I had Mortal Kombat 3, Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and you gotta say Turbo, and I also had Killer Instinct. So majority of the times, games, especially around that time, you didn't really have too much action adventure story, long term story games. So most of the times we played fighting games. Me and my sibling, we would play fighting, progress through the story to try and unlock characters and get them, secret endings. So most of the times it was just fighting games. When I got onto like the getting like a real like the major consoles that came out later, like PlayStation, Nintendo 64, and the next generation, that's when it really started. I started getting into these story games. Like as I mentioned earlier, like I got Resident Evil 2 and Metal Gear Solid within the same day. I was way too young to play, but we still played it anyway. And just playing Resident Evil 2 for the first time. It was I was so terrified to play it. I could never even get past that first bit when the liquor drops down. The cutscene when Leon or Claire works in the police station, and he jumps down. I could never get past that because I always forgot to pick up the bow gun. But yeah, like with that being said, like one I really with Resident Evil 2 and Metal Gear Solid, it really opened my eyes to action adventure. Like the idea of video games could be more just like this quick fun escapism. You could actually tell well, groundbreaking like stories that like some movies weren't even doing at the time. And it's not demonstrated even more than the jump from Resident Evil to Resident Evil 4. So what happened is like it's always like a set standard for most video games, and same with the movies. Like you always kind of have a trilogy. You have your one, two, three games, and then that's just the end of the series. It happened to like other games on the or that weren't fit because Resident Evil started on PlayStation. Originally the first Resident Evil, I believe it was either 1995 or 1996. I have to double check on that. But the first RE1 was released on the PS1 home console. Then, quickly followed by the sequel, which improved it tremendously. Like it's so strange playing Resident Evil 1 to 2. The jump in quality is completely outstanding. And then you got like 3, which pretty much just kept the same what made the Resident Evil 2 game great. They kept that and just like tweaked a few areas, polished it in the inclusion of Nemesis, which was a very great, boss, like a recurring boss to include, so they added that, which is better. But with that said, like it's like Resident Evil 2 and 3, the story's pretty much ended there, you know, like I mean like the whole thing was to escape Raccoon City because the whole city had become affected, you know, and the protagonists, you know, Chris, Jill, then Leon and Claire, they were able to escape it. So it always feels like because I played the games out of order, you know, Resident Evil 2 was the one I always had first. Then I had Code Veronica, which did not make any sense to me at all, you know, because I skipped, you know, I never played the first one, so I didn't even know who Chris was. And again, you know, these times, you know, you didn't have like the leniency to check the internet if you were stuck. You know, we had to always go to the store and buy magazines to see like where to, you know, progress. You know, or like what games FAQ, games fags. You know, you didn't call it games fags, but we had to check like, you know, download walkthroughs and that. Like man. So like I used to get stuck on Code Veronica the most, and I remember I just abandoned that game. But what I was saying is like it felt like when Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 came, and like Code Veronica came, like it was just Code Veronica was just spin off, but the whole series that ended. Then out of nowhere in 2005, I believe it was mid coming to fall 2005. I was still in second high school then. Resident Evil 4 drops, you know, for the PS2 and GameCube. And even just to like clarify, like when I even saw the cover, I was kind of confused. Like, is this still the same one that is this the same series that I originally had with Resident Evil 2? You know, because when I saw the two covers, like if anyone has a chance, grab the cover of Resident Evil 2 and then Resident Evil 4, and you kind of see like there's so much difference. You know, it's like immediately you'll be like, wait, this was dealing with zombies, and then this is dealing with more like humans who are just infected, like the parasites. You know, so I was just like, so is this the same game? Then I saw Leon, I was like, oh, that's the guy, that's the main guy. You know, the cool guy who was in Resident Evil 2. So it has to be linked. It says Resident Evil, Biohazard in Japan, so it's got to be linked. And like, you know, the second I popped the disc in to the PS2, went to the screen, it says Resident Evil 4. I was like, we were in for like a treat. You know, it shows like this whole kind of prologue intro of like what happened in the events of, you know, like a bit like what happened before Resident Evil 4. You know, like it's set like 6 or 7 years after the Raccoon City incident. You know, and it shows what Leon has been doing with himself. You know, he he trained himself and became, you know, an agent for the government. You know, and one of the top outstanding members. Because you always got to remember that when Leon came to Raccoon City, that was his first day on the job. You know what I mean? Some people, when they, you know, start in Zara for the first day, you know, they only got to worry about where hangers need to go, like, you know, how much type of shoes are in the stock room. But imagine to go in the first day of Raccoon City and you got zombies infected the whole place. Probably would be a good idea to quit dreams of being a policeman. But yeah, you know, like it really introduced Leon, like to really focus on Leon. The jump from like how his character like evolves from the second one to the to Resident Evil 4. It's like you went from that kind of teen boy, you know, the rookie, to like this man who could really, you know, take care of himself and handle these kind of situations. You know, when you see Leon in Resident Evil 4, he's kind of more like you know, calm and more precise. You know, like whereas in Resident Evil 2, a lot of these like series of events were just happening and you didn't know what to make of it, you know, so he was gonna make mistakes, he was gonna make blunders, you know. But in the fourth one, from the moment scenes, you know, because the action really kicks off from the beginning. You know, it's one thing that I really do credit that they did make the change, that Resident Evil 4 was the first one of the whole series to go from kind of suspense and like tension to action adventure. You know, you can even compare the first scenes in Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 4. In Resident Evil 2, majority of the time is survival horror. You know, you have limited ammo. There's these like kind of tight, you know, confined spaces, and you're always outnumbered. You know, if you go and try, you can't really like attack a zombie. You know, you can only make you know, attacks with a weapon, armed. You know, if you don't have that, you can use the knife. But the whole thing is more of just, you know, you're not meant to fight them. If they're in the way, you can attack them. But the whole thing is to just run, escape. You know, get to some safe place. Resident Evil 4, they ditched the whole kind of idea that, you know, Leon is incapable of handling himself. You know, he's able to start like they introduced this whole like kind of sway attack. Like once you stun an enemy, you can either kick them, you can German suplex, you could drop kick them, you can elbow them, you can twist their neck. You know, it shows like Leon's like super agent skills that he's learned within the events from Resident Evil 2 to Resident Evil 4, which I really love that, because you know, if you have gone through them kind of tragic events, you know, like, you know, what doesn't kill you can only make you stronger, right? You know what I mean? So like it would make sense that Leon, from what happened in Resident Evil 2, would have trained himself into this kind of like, you know, super kind of like you know, I wouldn't say ninja, but you know, this like, you know, secret agent, you know, who can, you know, handle himself in, you know, where the events take place, which is in Spain. Mentioning like it's in Spain, this was the first one. If you want to count Code Veronica as canon, as we DBZ boys say, you know, which it is, you know, it's like it's canon, you know, but if you want to stick to the Resident Evil 1 to 3 series, this is the first one that takes place not only outside of Raccoon City, but outside, you know, the US of A, you know. So I like that you've kind of got a different environment, and you know where the main plot to the story is it only introduced that the president's daughter has been kidnapped, and they have reason to believe that she's in Spain, you know. So they send Leon to basically go rescue the president's daughter. You know, they don't know what the situation is, they don't know what they're meant to encounter, you know, but they send like their best operative, which is Leon S. Kennedy. As Leon lands in Spain, you know, he gets attacked by all these villagers who have been infected. Later on, he finds out who have been infected by this kind of parasite, you know, which has been like, I don't know if it was yeah, was it like genetically produced, you know, or was it something that always existed? Like, was it fragments from the Raccoon Sea that made its way over shores, you know? But like the main guy the main like big like bad guy in this is Lord Sadler. You know, he's the one who kind of like controlled the whole events, and he orchestrated the plan to get the president's daughters you know, to kidnap the president's daughter, Ashley Graham. You know, and the whole thing was to kind of like get, you know, hold them on ransom to get money to, I basically believe, to continue on their projects with what they're doing, which is, you know, kind of leading on to world domination. And through the game, it's like Leon encounters other humans, you know, people who have not been infected, such as like Lewis, which was a cool guy. I subbed so hard when he didn't make it. Ada Wong, you know, the sexy I think she's the half Asian, half Caucasian woman who was presumed, you know, didn't make it in the second one. She appears in the main story, and she also appears in the separate scenarios, you know, Simon, Ada, and Separate Ways. So she appears. Ashley Graham, of course, which you spend going on to Ashley Graham more specifically. The game like introduced the whole you know, Leon is the main guy, but Ashley, you'll do some kind of sequences with Ashley. You know, sometimes Ashley would be used to crawl under somewhere where Leon couldn't reach, or when you would get split up together. Because the whole with Leon is he's meant to protect Ashley to get her basically out of the disinfected zone. You know, so if someone ends up takes Ashley, you know, the game it's game over. You know, so it's such a challenging game, you know, first and foremost, that, you know, it's already tough enough dealing with like these millions of, you know, parasitical enemies. You got to deal with the chain, you know, there's a guy with a chainsaw, you know, Leatherface basically inspired, he's in this. and then this crazy amount of bosses you've got to fight, and in most majority of the times you still gotta protect the president's daughter. Just shows what a bad ass Leon S. Kennedy is. And yeah, what I really love with this game, I think if you've got to talk about the main contributing factor to what made Resident Evil 4 so good, was definitely just the bold attempt to make something completely unique and different. The first thing you will see is when you start this game is the camera angle has shifted. Not like that, but like the camera angle has shifted. This was the first game ever to ever make the third person uh first person and camera angle available. Yeah, the third person, like behind the camera perspective, which is really like, so Leon would always be Leon, or who you're playing with in front would be in the foreground, and the camera would follow him as he's like walking forward, so you can basically see the whole landscape in front of you. And then like the camera, the protagonist's back is faced behind, so you always see the back of Leon or Ada or Ashley Graham or whoever you're playing with in Mercenaries. You would see the protagonist as they're kind of seeing it, but like you're seeing it from their back. So kind of like if you were walking behind them, that's how you would see, the visuals of the game. And if you want to talk about something that's very innovative, groundbreaking, no one had done this before, completely different, especially from the series. The past installments before always focused on short spaced and fixed camera angles to convey a lot of like tension and to convey a lot of like horror. This like flipped the switch and really focused on creating this kind of like sandbox landscape, of a game where you could really see the whole of like you could sometimes just stand by and like, there's like a good scene when like Leon's walking in, he's walking into that kind of sort of shed where he and Ashley got going. He and Ashley get inside, and all these villagers, they locate where Leon is, and they want to come and just like take him out. But if you just walk towards, before that scene happens, the cutscene, when you just walk to the shed just in the middle of nowhere, you can just see the whole just the scenery of the landscape, the big trees. You can really like taste like what the atmosphere looks like in the game. It's like where it focused on the other games, the installments, it was more focused on these, like I said, the small tight spaces. So they didn't worry too much about rendering like big backgrounds, like seeing like how big this game really is. That's the feeling you always get from Resident Evil 4, anytime I've played it. And just to note, like, it's probably been the most replayable game I've ever played. I can't name a game now I've played more than Resident Evil 4, over and over again, off the console. It's been more that game. But yeah, and like as I've been, mentioning about replayability, the one thing I love is why I've always been a fan of action adventure games. I was big fan of Legend of Zelda. Legend of Zelda was the one to really start this off, of making like a game that was at least like 30 or 40 hours long. So you weren't in this kind of like you know, I've sometimes felt that when I've played games that are very short, that you could actually, like as I used to say before, clock it in like one day, maybe 10 hours, and that you cannot do that with Resident Evil 4. The game is so damn long. I've always did this kind of thing. I would do 2 chapters, save it, and play the rest on like another day. Because even the chapters just in between, it's so dicey, and it's so like especially when you start going on the hard difficulties, like playing on professional. Some of the times, like, you may have to always like, just like how when the boulder is chasing you and you do it on professional difficulty, it's so difficult to run and then evade in the last minute, because they make the boulder more quicker to attack you, to finally take you out. and you gotta quickly dive out of the way. On the earlier difficulties, like easy and normal is fine, but play on professional, it's really damn hard. So I remember that was one thing I had to always like play, repetitively. Repetitively, I had to keep doing that like boulder challenge, or like when you're like evacuating Sadler. Salazar's like like brethren, son. You have to evacuate his castle. And you're running away, and you gotta jump over to the other side of the the castle and that. So it's such a challenging game, and what I love is the horror element's still there, in few areas, like the part with the insect bites. I find it very tiring when you're fighting a Sadler's Guardian, the one that pops underneath the ground. He stick his like claws. Anyway, very very tiring, terrifying, but it's just in a different kind of element of horror than Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3. If I only had one gripe with Resident Evil 4, and it's it's like the tiniest nitpick, and at the time obviously I didn't think about it. It's just that games we've taken the main influence, the blueprint of Resident Evil 4, they went on to do, in like games that were heavily inspired by like Dead Space, like a Batman Arkham Asylum, Gears of Wars. What they simply did is your whole weapons inventory screen in Resident Evil 4, you would have to press start like the original games. You'd press the start select button and go to your screen, then select an item. So the whole action would pause, and then you would go to the screen. Just check if you got first aid, check if you got your shotgun or the Chicago typewriter, check that, and then like select and then get back to the screen. Whereas the new games like Dead Space, I always loved like to keep it with like the realism and the main like, okay, this is happening in real events. Isaac Clarke in Dead Space, he can't go start to change his weapons. He has to just change it on the screen with the D-pad. Left, right, down, up, left. The weapons he's selected, he can just select one there. Or if he had to use a first aid spray, you could just press one button and just heal himself automatically, which is so weird. Like once I played them games, like because I was on Dead Space and Batman Arkham Asylum. I had them two games together, and I was mad on them games. Then when I think Resident Evil 4 got re-released on PlayStation 3, I played that. I still kept on pressing the D-pad, and when that happened, I was getting attacked viciously by these monsters, because I kept on forgetting you had to press the start screen, you know what I mean? So, but that was only one thing, they later changed it in Resident Evil 5, but that's the only thing. But it's still, Resident Evil 4 still left the main foundation for all these games we now see for future to come, man. Pretty much all the PS4 games, even the GTA games, borrowed this of the third person perspective camera angle. The behind the character you're playing with. All games now feature it, which is a good thing and it's a bad thing, because now, whereas before, as I mentioned, Resident Evil 3, 1, 2, 3, and even the Silent Hill games, Metal Gear Solid, they all used to have like a different camera angles to suit their games. Whereas kind of now, it's like any game that's being, made in this era, they always want to go back to that camera angle that was made famous in Resident Evil 4. Even when I saw the new Spider-Man Spider-Man for PS4, they used that camera angle. Then it zooms out when when the web head is starting to web swing. So it is cool, but it'd be nice that some other camera angle, could be made for these new gen games. It's like it's always cool when something new gets made, but it doesn't get beat to the bush, so everyone uses it. Then it kind of loses like what made it good in the first place. It's always good if something like new come out. Like I feel like I know this is completely off subject, off kilter, but like the twerking sensation that started, like what was it, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. Now everyone does it. You know, I'm seeing teachers in elementary schools trying to twerk, you know, and they never even listen to like a Beyonce album, you know what I mean, or Cardi B, and that like it, you know, sometimes it can get played out, you know what I mean. So it would be nice that the next games could focus on making some, even if they return back to the roots, you know, because I remember I did see I did actually play it. I was so impressed when they made the Resident Evil 2 remake, and they basically, like I said, they used the Resident Evil 4 camera angle, which was great, you know, and I do love it, you know. It's good, nice that they reimagined it, but still my heart still loves the original one that hit the PlayStation in the mid 90s. You know, that can still never get beat. Even the camera angles changed, and I still think the original works better than that. So I'm just hoping that you know, for future games they don't just always go back to, let's just use Resident Evil 4's camera angle. You know, it worked for this game. Let's use it for these future games. You know, try to create something that no one's ever seen before. You know, think outside the box. So yeah, man. Again, you know, it's like I'm probably saying what everyone's thinking. You know, I don't think no one has ever had a bad thing to say about Resident Evil 4. You know, for me, I've just always, like I said, when it came out in 2005 and we're in 2019, there's not been a video game I've played as much as that one. You know, I've always had the game, no matter being PS3, you know, PS4, MTV. No, I'm not joking, but like I've always had the console. It's always been like, the video game's always been like very dear to my heart, you know. And Leon S. Kennedy, he's one of my favorite video game characters of all time as well. You know, right, probably right behind Link from Legend of Zelda. You know, I've always loved like Leon S. Kennedy. He looks like what a video game character protagonist should be like. You know, cool, smooth. You know, cool with the ladies, Ada Wong. You know what I mean? That's what like a hero is meant to look like. And I love how Leon in this, he's not so buff like how they made Chris Redfield in Resident Evil 5. You know, they made Chris Redfield so, you know, big and enormous, you know, and which you always felt when you played with Chris in the later games, he always felt slower, you know. And I felt like Leon had that nice kind of like smoothness, like of a Solid Snake from the Metal Gear Solid. Like he could do all these kind of, you know, these kind of like you know, martial arts moves. You know, like he was very well trained, very well smart, and he was just more, you know, cool. Like that jacket alone in Resident Evil 4, so amazing, man, and it's cool. And again, with the appearance of Ada Wong, you know, you can't go wrong. So yeah, man, like I've always given it you know, I've given a Resident Evil 4 like a perfect score always. You know, it's a 10 out of 10 game. You know, I really wish the children of today's generation could really take time and play a game like that. Take a break out of Fortnite, kids. You know, you can play a game that's really challenging and just really, really genuine. You know, I really wish that another game comes along that can kind of like flip the whole script, just like Resident Evil 4 did, you know. Here's hoping, you know. Man, that's my quick thoughts on Resident Evil 4 from Capcom. If anyone's you know, if anyone, I'm pretty sure everyone's played Resident Evil 4. You know, message me, man. Drop some comments of what you think about the game. You know, do you think it's as great as I said it as? Yes, I said it is. You know, do you think it has some issues it could have worked on? You know, let me know and we can have a discussion about this. Yeah, but till then, peace to fingers.